Gents, let's focus on the next big topic now, and that's Euro 2020. It's starting. It's about to kick off. Let's preview it, and let's focus on who the favorites will be to be European champions this summer. Of course, the tournament's delayed by a whole year due to COVID. It's taking place in multiple countries and cities across Europe. Be fans galore in a lot of these cities. It's going to be really interesting to see how that impacts certain teams. There's a big buzz here in England in particular about the fan bases getting behind their national setup. So, Andy Edwards, what storylines and which team do you kind of have your eyes on? Because, last time out in the Euros, it's 5 years ago now, but Iceland with a big surprise package. So there's always seems to be a nation that we don't expect to do well. But personally, I love this new 2014 format, the expanded format, because you get to see teams in this competition that wouldn't usually be there. So what do you got your eyes on ahead of Euro 2020 kicking off this week?
Yeah, personally, I thought the surprise package of 2016 was Harry Kane on corner kicks, but that's just me. Iceland, a fairly decent story during that tournament as well. For me, at least from the start of the tournament, it's Group F. Hungary, I'm very, very sorry, but you're in a group with Portugal, the defending European champions, France, the reigning world champions, and Germany, the previous World Cup champions. Those are three absolute giants in that group. And the fact that we're going to get to see them face off against one another from the very beginning, we don't have to wait to the knockout rounds to see, arguably three of the favorites in this tournament face off one against another, against another, against another immediately. That to me, just, I think kind of highlights how many great national teams there are in Europe, and why the Euros has always, for me, even over the World Cup, been the international tournament that I look forward to the most, because just the concentration of incredible talent there in Europe. All due respect to other parts of the world, when you have to include everybody from around the world, the talent level gets watered down a little bit, and you leave out some nations that are just so much better, and they typically come from Europe. So the fact that we get 24 of them in now, this is one of the rare instances of expanding a competition that I actually think is brilliant, and I think it's going to add so much to the entertainment of this. And when we get to the knockout rounds, having an extra few games in there as well it's just going to prolong it that little bit more. I could not be more excited for Euro 2020 in 2021, of course. And Group F, I think, just sets it off perfectly for the rest of the tournament.
And I think basically, right, they just kept that name because of the band. They already had the banners, they already had all the other merchandise. Let's just roll it out again next year, lads. But yeah, I get what you're saying with this tournament, because I looked at this earlier, and 6 of the top 7 teams in the world, based on the current FIFA rankings, are from UEFA. I think it's 13 of the top 18 in the FIFA World Rankings are from UEFA as well. So that concentration of talent makes this tournament just brilliant, and every game seems to be superstars playing against each other and going at it every single day. So really intrigued. And Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com will have you covered throughout this tournament on the Euros. And Nick, talking about the superstar players, which of those stars in particular need to step up and have this tournament go well for them? I'm looking at, maybe Eden Hazard to kind of put himself back in the picture after his injury spells. Harry Kane, can he finally deliver a trophy for England? Manuel Neuer for this kind of young, inexperienced Germany team. Which big stars are you looking at that need to step up and be the hero for their nations this summer?
You know what? I wasn't going to mention Hazard, but I was going to talk about Belgium, and now I think you're right. So now I'm not going to transition. I don't have the stats and the info to do that, Joe. So maybe, but I would say anyone who is in the back line or in goal for Belgium, who I think is primed to have potentially one of the best, most memorable tournaments. When you can roll out Yuri Tielemans and Kevin De Bruyne, the progressive passing machines of European soccer, on the same team with Lukaku feasting. They can beat a lot of teams, but they're going to end up in a surprise 0-0. Hey, they ended up in a surprise, what was it at the time? 2-2 with the United States for a while. And what's it going to be at the back? Because a lot of those guys, Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, I think every one of their center backs is over 30. So the question is, Roberto Martinez, who I think we've all admired in some stage of his career, if he pulls this off, he's you never forget it. You never forget it. So, but that does go to Hazard too, because he was the best player in the world for a little while when Messi was hurt and Ronaldo was down for a summer. I don't know. That's the one I'm looking at. I'm all about Belgium. And just one quick note, because I won't get to mention again, Hungary. Okay. Why Euro, the expanded field, is so interesting. And I'm so glad Andy said this, is because so many of us have European backgrounds in the United States. And we grew up with some of our, whatever you want to call it, histories, lineages, not represented. I've never watched Scotland in a big place. I've watched plenty of Italy in a big place. I've never watched Hungary. That's the third part of my DNA. And when you see that, there's just this part of you that, this unknown. So yeah, they're playing these great teams. As a guy who's been waiting to see them in this spot, I can't wait. I'm so excited to just measure up.
And Nick, you mentioned Scotland there. That's really interesting because when you look at some of these teams, I mean, they haven't been in a major tournament since 1998 in the World Cup. So living here in England, trust me, and living in Scotland as well, I heard a lot about that. I heard a lot about the failures and, you know, the love for the game there, but they've never been able to get on this big stage. Well, not for a long, long time now. Finland are in the Euros for the first time, of course. And then you look down the list and countries like the Czech Republic have a very good team. That's, you know, Souček and Kufel will be playing, and Wales, you know, on their day went to the semi-finals of the last Euros. So Poland with Lewandowski, obviously Denmark are a very solid team. Switzerland, we saw that recently. Croatia, I mean, Netherlands. I mean, these are all teams outside of the powerhouse.
Watch out for Turkey.
To win it. Yeah, Turkey as well with Yilmaz up front. I mean, Andy, any of those teams stand out to do something like Iceland did? Because if I look at it here, yes, Scotland are in a tough group. So are Czech Republic. But I think those two teams may surprise people and get to the latter stages, or maybe even Finland, because watching them through qualification, no one expected them to do that. And we know in Teemu Pukki, if they say solid defensively, he can score a few goals.
Yeah, I'll give you two here. Switzerland, who we saw against the U.S. men's national team just last week, I thought they were impressive without being flashy. They were workmanlike, very, very workmanlike. They're going to be a tough tournament team to knock out. Any team that can defend and just get compact the way that Switzerland did and tend to do when they play internationally. And I also think Denmark, in a lot of the same ways, they've got a lot of players who have reached some very, very high places in the club game. Similar to what we've talked about with the U.S. men's national team, I'm just looking at the squad here. I see a lot of flags from Italy. You know, players that playing at big Serie A clubs, a handful in England, a handful in Spain as well. And so, you know, we talk about the golden generations in terms of the global superstars like a Belgium with all the players that they've had come through recently. But in terms of a nation like Denmark, this is absolutely the same as that. And so with players coming up 28, 30 years old in that range, this is their tournament. This is their last chance probably as players that the Danes have come to know and come to love over the last handful of years, to see them make noise at a major international tournament. So I think those two teams really have something about them, and given the groups that they're in, I think that they progress into the knockout rounds. And at that point, when it's 90 minutes or 120 minutes to move on, they're going to be very, very difficult to beat, I think, in the knockout rounds.
Something I want to point out here is that some teams will be playing at home a lot. The way that this tournament was shared around, there's, you know, England are playing at home in particular, and 6 of their 7 games in the tournament, if they were somehow managed to get to the final, then 6 of those 7 games would be at Wembley Stadium. So that to me is a huge advantage. I'm not sure I agree with that logic. I kind of like the fact that a team, you know, all teams from, you know, across Europe travel to one country like I did in France back in 2016, and it's a level playing field. Everyone's playing at neutral venues. So that's takes the edge off slightly. I think it does stack the odds in the favor of the big guys. And, you know, let's put our neck on the line here. I mean, let's pick a winner, because you know, I'm looking at this and 3 teams really stand out. I'm not going to say England because I just can't say that. But I think Portugal, Belgium and France, really, if you look at the depth of their squads and how many just world-class players they have, Ronaldo for Portugal, Mbappe for France, and then obviously De Bruyne on his day, or even Hazard for Belgium. They have those players that can just change a game in an instant. But Lads, we got any particular feeling about which of these European giants are going to win this thing this summer? Just jump in. Whoever wants to go first.
I do. I'm going to say Belgium.
Okay.
If you look at them, I think it would be surprising if they didn't win their group. And if they win their group, they are going to end up looking at a potential round of if they win, dealing with a team they could deal with in the next round. And I think the path plays out well for them. I just think they're really, really good. My dark horse, I know I shouted it out there in the middle of your talk. My dark horse is Turkey. I think on a week-to-week basis, they aren't a gaff team, or sorry, in a short window like this. I think they're built to not be a gaff team. I think they're built to fill in for each other without losing a lot of star quality and depth. So I think Belgium wins it. Turkey's my one who I think we're sitting here in the quarterfinals and going, still Turkey, huh? Like, I think that happens.
Andy?
I want to say France, but for all the obvious reasons, but the history of World Cup winning teams then going into the Euros, I think it's only been done once, and that would have been Spain, 2010 to 2012, to kind of, go back to back. And they even went back to back international tournaments during that truly, truly golden, that's a platinum generation, diamond generation from Spain at this point. So I'll go away from France a little bit. I do this every tournament, and Joe knows this about me because we've talked about this in the past, and my other friends, from England know this about me. I get so high on England before every tournament because you can look up and down the squad and you can just say, where's the weakness? There's hugely talented players up and down the entire squad. Now, I do think there's a little bit of a weakness, particularly right in the middle of the field for this England team. They're a little bit short, I think, in central midfield and even more so defensive midfield. I have big questions about Jordan Henderson, but it kind of seems like he's almost just been brought along as the leader in the locker room, not the cheerleader by any means, but somebody that's there to support and offer leadership. And I think Gareth Southgate, if he's wise in this tournament, we see a lot of Calvin Phillips, we see a lot of Declan Rice, we don't see a ton of Jordan Henderson, and we let this team kind of transition into what is going to fully be the next generation of England stars and hand the reins over. And at that point, I kind of like them. I really like England at that point because we know what they've got up top. John Stones had his renaissance. Joe, you're only upset because I'm talking a lot of sense here, and because you know that it's true, and because you know that it could happen and what could happen, if it doesn't. So I like this England team. I like England before every tournament, so I'll say that up front, and we'll let the chips fall where they may.
So it's your fault, all this tournament misery over the years. Okay, that's fair enough. At least we got someone to blame. Other than penalty kicks, I'm going to go with Portugal to repeat. Oh. I think they're being overlooked by a lot of people. I think they're in a tough group, don't get me wrong. They've got to get past Germany and France in their group. But if they can do that, I think it sets them up very well for the knockout rounds. Ronaldo on his day is still, showing what he can do at Juve week in, week out in Serie A, leading that league in goals this year, which is incredible at his age. Ruben Diaz, been brilliant for Man City. Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes. You look through their roster, and 1 to 11, if they get lucky with injuries, I would argue that along with France, they have the best starting lineup in this competition. Usually, I would say Germany because they always seem to find a way to get to the semi-finals at least, but they're a totally different beast this season. Or this year under Joachim Löw, and obviously he's leaving at the end of the tournament. He's brought in Muller and Hummels, so not quite sure what's going on there with Hansi Flick coming in. I thought there's a lot of good young players, but I can't see it with Germany. So I'm going to go with Portugal. Nick's gone with Belgium. Andy's gone with England for some reason, which means that France are probably going to win it. And that was my final point. That you can't look past them because when you look at the players who didn't make France's squad. Wow, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible to see the talent they have, even at the under 20, under 21s, under 19 level. So, in a roundabout way, I'm going with Portugal. I'm sticking with that. And it's going to be intriguing to see how the Euros goes this summer. But, Andy, I don't think it's coming home for England, but I think they may get to the semi-finals again. And then we can see what happens when it comes to dreaded penalty kicks. But over on Pro Soccer Talk and NBCSports.com, I've ranked every nation 24-1. Based on where I think they're at. We've got the top 20 players ranked at Euro 2020, which was ridiculously difficult. Trust me to do that. And throughout the tournament, the three gents you can see on the screen, Andy, Edwards, Nick, and I, we'll have you covered with European Championships coverage and news, analysis, videos. It's going to be a great tournament. As you said, compared to the World Cup, this is the most concentrated, top quality action. And I cannot wait, as you can tell, for it to start. Even though England are one of the favourites, I can't wait for it to start. So, gents, Euro 2020 is going to be brilliant.
You know, most people might be happy because their nation is one of the favorites. And you say, even though England are one of the favorites, I'm still excited. I love that.
We got to play it cool. We got to play it cool, mate. Even though we have a golden generation, Harry Kane, that's,